Welcome to Packaging Experts Tell All. This is a show that takes place the third Tuesday of each month. The purpose of our show is to provide stories, examples, and tips to help you buy packaging better. I'm your host, Sarah Scudder. I'm a growth strategist and help B2B tech companies with their marketing. I oversee marketing for Real Sourcing Network. We help companies make their packaging more sustainable. Each show, I pick a different packaging-related topic. Today, we're talking about subscription box packaging. The subscription market is worth around $15 billion, according to a report from McKinsey & Company. Companies are partnering with artists to design really cool and interesting packaging. Part of the reason why I've personally signed up for a subscription box service is because of the aesthetics, aka it looks cool. My first impression is not of the actual products, it's the packaging. Packaging sells. It's also convenient. Getting around during the pandemic was not easy. Having stuff delivered to my house was much easier than leaving the Chateau Danville farm to go shopping. And now that I'm used to this, I'm not going back. I will be continuing to order a lot of my things online. So to kick off our discussion today, I'm going to have each of our panelists share a favorite subscription box brand, either one that they've personally signed up for, someone in their family, and or someone that they think is doing really cool and innovative marketing. Our panelists have spent years in the packaging industry as buyers, consultants, and manufacturers. So to kick us off, Brian, I'd like to have you introduce yourself and share a fun, interesting fact about yourself.
Sure thing. Thanks so much, Sarah. Tim and James, nice to see you again. Matt, hello. Happy to be sharing the stage with you today. My name is Brian Gately. I'm a Philly-based custom corrugated packaging specialist for Buckeye Corrugated Inc. I mainly focus on helping D2C, CPG, and subscription-based brands improve their unboxing experience and bring more sustainable solutions to market. An interesting fact about myself, I guess I'm going to try to use one that I didn't use last time. I think I used the one that my dad is a second-generation corrugated packaging specialist. This time I'll go around and go back to my college days. I was a collegiate goalkeeper at a D3 institute in college, and then on my weekends, I still enjoy to hop in the net in a men's Sunday league. So there's an interesting fun fact that you may not know about me. But happy to be here with you all today and talking subscription boxes.
Awesome, Brian. And I'd love to get the audience engaged in the conversation. So if you could tell us in the comments where in the world you are joining us from, and also a word to describe how you are feeling today. So I'd like to have those come in as we continue the conversation. So Brian, I'd like to have you share a favorite subscription box brand. And if you're comfortable, tell us why it's one of your favorites.
Yeah, sure. So I put a little thought into this one. I didn't want to choose one of the subscription box companies that I partner with because I thought that could be a little biased. So I went with one that I have no professional relationship with. I want to give a shout out to the people over at Universal Yums. They run an awesome subscription box. I believe it's monthly. Each monthly, they curate a different set of snacks and specialty goods from around the world. So one might be themed Belgium, one might be themed Ukraine, but they're bringing snacks from all over the globe right to your doorstep. It's an awesome brand and a beautiful subscription box.
Awesome, Brian. Well, thanks for being here today. Really looking forward to all the insights. I know you do a lot in the subscription space. Next up, Matt, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you as our guest. So we'd love to have you introduce yourself and tell us an interesting personal fact.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. And Sarah, thank you for inviting me today. My name is Matt Reddington. I'm the Vice President of Packaging for Procure Analytics based here in Atlanta, Georgia. Procure Analytics is the leading global data forward group purchasing organization for MRO and packaging. We specialize in those two categories, do about $1 billion of managed spend for our members on an annual basis, partnering really with private equity, consultancies, trade organizations, and individual companies to drive continuous value growth for our partners and our members. A fun and interesting fact was, I guess my wife and I got on the Peloton bandwagon August of last year, so we're coming on the 1 year anniversary. And so I have done over 40,000 miles on the bike in the past year without leaving my house. So I guess that's a fun, interesting fact for me for today.
I feel like they have quite a cult going with all the classes and the clothing, and they've definitely built quite a brand.
Absolutely.
So Matt, I'd like to have you share a favorite subscription box brand and why they're one of your favorites.
Sure. And mine's a little bit more simplistic probably than what Brian just shared, but my favorite one right now is actually Misfits Markets. It's the organic produce delivered to your house on a weekly basis. And I've got a couple reasons behind that. One, I think they've done a very good job of simplifying their packaging and also telling a very sustainable story, not only from the packaging, but from the product that they're delivering. What I mean by that is most of what Misfits is putting out there is really produce that would otherwise be thrown away by grocery stores because it doesn't look right or it's close to its expiration date. And then from a packaging perspective, we've seen Misfits move from having a lot of resin-based packaging in there to having almost 100% curbside recyclable packaging. And their branding and communication message has really been simplified over the past year.
Yeah, and Matt, I'm glad you bring up the sustainability piece. I know that's going to be a big part of our conversation today. And when you Google subscription box packaging, there's a lot of negative articles and things that come up about how wasteful subscription box programs are. So I'll be interested to dive into the sustainability component later today. So Matt, thanks again for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah.
Tim, you are one of our regulars. Awesome to see you each month. Would like to have you introduce yourself and share a personal fun fact.
Okay, thank you again, Sarah. 34 years in the traditional wide web flexible packaging arena, making flexible packaging for food, pet food, medical applications, personal care, food service, sub wraps, et cetera, just about every type of flexible packaging you can think of over my career. And most recently, a lot of interest in a lot of the a fair amount of the packaging that we have done here at AccuFlex Packaging has been in the area of CBD and cannabis packaging, which up until a few years ago was never even thought about or considered. So.
And then Tim, would like to have you share a favorite subscription brand and why they're one of your favorites.
All right, I have to be honest with you. I've only had one subscription brand to date, and it was a gift from my millennial son, and it was the once a month shaver brand. So that's the only one I've used. So I went to a couple resident experts that I know well here where we work and talked to them. And the two that really stuck out was, I hope I can mention them, it was Blue Apron and Hello Fresh. And the reason they said they were their favorites or they liked it was because you end up trying things, as they explained to me, that you normally cannot find in your local supermarkets or things you would never try until they showed up on your doorstep. Recipes and food, etc. It also introduced them to new foods and flavors they'd never experienced before. And I think the other one that I'll throw out there too is the Target Quip program, which once a month, a his and hers, husband and wife, toothbrush shows up with the toothpaste. And this individual thought that was a great idea because now they don't have to run out and remember, oh, it's time to replace the toothpaste and or toothbrush and get a new one. So anyway.
Well, thank you for doing your research and thanks for the millennials in your family, Tim. And that brings up another interesting conversation, which hopefully we'll touch on today, is about the age demographic. What are subscription companies really targeting and marketing? Is it all ages or are they really focused on the millennials or a specific generation? So thanks for being with us, Tim. James, happy to have you back on the show. I think you were on a couple months ago. So would like to have you introduce yourself and share a personal fun fact.
Well, James Jones, I hold several hats. I have a company, JKT Packaging Solution, which I'm president of. I work with the Antares Group as their lead packaging consultant. And I have another company that I run where we get into more finance and B2B capital, that kind of thing. So been around. What we do in the packaging space is we do design, sourcing, and problem solving, basically. I like to say problem solving is what we do. And if any of us that are in business, we know what our basic job is to solve problems for our customers. An interesting fact about me is I went into the pandemic a pescatarian, and I came out of the pandemic a vegan. So I am full vegan, not raw vegan yet, but I'm totally vegan. No meat, no anything that came from meat, nothing that had parents, no sentient being. Gets on my plate. So it's good. The good thing is I'm also indoctrinating my kids little by little. So when I make, vegan spaghetti, they love it, and, just totally getting them into that kind of thing.
So James, I've been a vegetarian for 28 years. I haven't gone vegan, but I have not had meat or fish in a very long time, so I can relate. So James, I'd like to have you share a favorite subscription box brand and why they are one of your favorites.
Well, I got two ways coming at it. So my favorite to work on as a client, solving a client problem, my favorite subscription boxes to work on are, interesting enough, the one that has to do with makeup, anything to do with cosmetics, because they're so complicated. And there's so many, and the client challenges you and pushes you in a way to solve problems in a way you would have never thought of before, because they want sustainability, they want it to look great, they want the best type of paper, but they don't want it to cost a lot as much too. So it really puts you into this, test your chops basically. So working on projects as far as customer subscription, it would hands down be anything to do in the cosmetics industry, because one, it's very challenging, and as all of us know, the more challenging it is, the more margin it is, because you can't do it, because everybody can't do it. My favorite personal is, as I get busier and busier running the companies that I run, I don't have enough time to shop for myself as far as clothes. So Stately is one of the ones I use, where I tell them what type of style I want, and every month I get an outfit every month. So it saves me a lot of headache and that kind of thing, between belts, shoes, pants, shirt, everything like that, whatever style I want. They have my measurements. So it's great. That's my personal.
Yeah, I think, James, convenience is one of my favorite thing about subscription box. We're all so busy, and having stuff just arrive at your door is worth a lot instead of the time it takes to go out to the store and make a purchase. Well, James, thank you so much for being with us today.
No problem. Thank you for
All
having
right,
me.
so we're going to get into our questions now. And for those of you in the audience, would also love if you can put in the comments if you have a favorite subscription box brand. Would like to see what some of those are. And then also why. If there's a reason why you absolutely love a specific brand, would love to hear that in the comments. So Matt, I'm going to kick off our Q&A today with you. And I'd like to ask you, what is the driving growth of subscription box brands? Is this a fad brought on by COVID, or do you think this is a viable long-term business model where we're going to see more and more companies coming up with subscription offerings?
Sure. Thank you, Sarah, for the question. So subscription boxes has really been around for some time now in many different modes. I actually had the pleasure of helping launch the original subscription to what Tim was mentioning around the Dollar Shave Club, and the folks that launched that out there with some of the packaging back when that launched a few years ago. I think it's really been good for folks. At its initial piece was for folks that were hard to shop for, or for a way for consumers to try a new brand or a new offering, or something that they hadn't seen before. But I think what's happened in the last, let's call it 2 years, a little before COVID, although COVID probably put a shot into the arm of it, was the drive for subscription boxes for making life easier, and the accelerated growth that's happened from that, right? So we saw first half of this year that e-commerce got somewhere between 20 and 25% of total retail sales. That's a significant jump, right? We weren't supposed to reach that until close to 2025. Subscription boxes have really pushed that forward, but that's also hampered a little bit of our supply chains. So with consumers wanting convenience and predictability, much of the growth is really coming out of those essentials that folks needed during the pandemic. Now what you're starting to see is folks that are reaching out. They've secured that income. They think they have a little bit more disposable income than they did earlier on in the pandemic, and they're continuing to shop those brands. On the flip side of that, you've seen big brands such as Nike and others that are trying to get into some sort of subscription box. You got Bombas from a socks trying to get you to buy subscription socks. So I'm not quite sure how that model is going to work because I don't replace my socks quite as often as that. And once I get there, I don't need as many. So I'm not sure their models is sustainable from a subscription box perspective. But the durables are one side, but the non-durables that we continue to replace, I really think is where that growth is. And to survive, brands are really having to go through and think about what their aspirational messaging is, how they're going to communicate that messaging, and doing it in a sustainable way. Personally, I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. I used to love to shop local, go out there and interact with the product, kind of minimize my carbon footprint. But with what's driven the pandemic and the decisions from the buying process now, I don't think this is going away anytime soon. I think this will be a catalyst for manufacturers to put in more small box capacity. And this ultimately is going to drive a whole new level of e-commerce experience for the consumer.
Yeah, and Matt, when you talk about replenishable things, I think food is a really big market, and several of the panelists mentioned those because you're constantly eating products, and that's something that, you weekly or even bi-weekly is something that can make sense. So I'm really curious to see what innovations food companies come up with, because I think that's something that could really last long term.
Absolutely. I think Tim mentioned Blue Apron. I talked about Misfit Markets. And there's a whole host of other ones that are out there that are really driving that food security and making sure we keep our food supply chain whole.
Mm-hmm. All right, Matt, thank you for that. So Brian, next question is for you. You mentioned in your intro that you work with a lot of subscription box brands and you guys are a manufacturer. So I'd like to know what's the most difficult part of servicing subscription box brands? And then secondly, what mistakes have you seen them make that are that other similar subscription box companies should try to avoid?
Yeah. Yep. Thanks for the question, Sarah. So common mistakes that I see subscription companies make is early on really struggling to balance the mix of having a positive unboxing experience and a beautiful branded box and managing that with the company's budget. Most subscription models are operating off pretty tight profit margins, so every penny counts. Early on, a lot of these services want to go for that, beautiful box that we're all picturing, but they may not be ready for that yet because there's things like maybe logo changes, branding changes, product changes, things that can be very costly to change on a packaging standpoint after the fact that your product's been released. So sometimes it's better to take a walk before you run approach when designing your packaging. And then another kind of difficult part of servicing a subscription company could be that, corrugated in the box is such an integral part of their supply chain. So if timelines are tight or if they're not managing their time correctly, they can be put into serious fulfillment binds, which can cost lots of money. And a common mistake that I see lead to that is companies putting so much attention into curating the goods and products for their box, and they allow packaging to become an afterthought for the final stage. So here's our box, and now, oh, shoot, what are we going to put it in? And, while keeping in mind that these brands are often operating off tight timelines. Their customer expects the box to ship on the 3rd of the month, arrive on the 7th of the month, and if you start deviating from that timeline, you risk losing your subscription base. So those are a couple challenges that I see from the packaging side and some common maybe mistakes that the companies may be making.
All right, thanks for that, Brian. So Matt, back over to you. One of the things that I mentioned in the intro, and I know a lot of my friends who have subscriptions as well, a big part of it is the cool design, right? What the packaging and the box looks like. So subscription box brands often hire designers to come up with these really cool and unique packaging. The unboxing experience is important to the consumer retention. What types of exterior and interior packaging have you seen work best for subscription programs?
Absolutely. So the initial message I'd say here is really be organic, be innovative, and be badass in what you want to do. And what I mean by that is know what your brand is all about. And what Brian pointed out is focus on delivering that value to the consumer, but maybe don't go all in for that Apple quality box right out of the gate, quote unquote. So what I've seen work best in the past was folks were trying to take retail packaging and shove it through an e-commerce system, and it just doesn't play well. Then we saw folks take the retail box and just flip it inside out. You had the white become the outside, and all their foil and color graphics were on the inside, and it was confusing messaging to the consumer. What we've seen really work best in the past few years, at least from the brands that I've worked with and the packaging that we've developed, I used to run a branding and packaging design team, so I think I've got a pretty good background here, is the layered unboxing experience and that reveal. So it's creating how that box opens when the consumer touches it, right? You don't want a box opening to you because now you're blocking me from the product. You don't necessarily want a large flap opening away from you because now all of a sudden the box is unsteady and it's falling away. So it's figuring out that right opening experience. And then it's revealing different pieces as you go through that packaging. That's giving you lots of different touch points for your messaging to talk about your brand and pull the consumer into that brand more. And then they've got to be able to mirror what they're communicating from their online, their Instagram accounts, their websites via their packaging as well, right? So big piece here is what works in retail doesn't work in e-commerce. You got to focus on engaging the consumer, uncovering those Easter egg moments that you can hide in there for the consumers, and be able to create those YouTube videos of folks unboxing your product, all while doing that in a sustainable way, right? So we used to see a lot of people mix materials with laminates that made it harder to recycle. And I honestly think that we're doing a disservice to the consumers with the amount of recycling logos that we put on certain packaging components, specifically air pillows, right? Those Dunwich pillows that show up in almost every box. Even my wife, and I've been in the packaging business for over 15 years, still throws them into our recycling bin, and I've got to go take those out, right? They're not curbside recyclable. They screw up the entire truck. It'll shut down equipment. That's why here in Atlanta, we've stopped accepting glass in recycling because the glass is actually eating the belts and the components of the machine, and was costing them more money as well as causing lacerations. So we've got to get to a more sustainable way here. And I think subscription boxes with the messaging that they have and the followings that they have online can really help deliver that message around what is truly sustainable for the consumers while delivering that branded experience that everybody comes to expect and really loves.
And Matt, to close out this part of the conversation, what have you seen around QR codes or augmented reality in regards to subscription boxes?
Yeah, so I think 19 Crimes, we did some work with those guys. I think they did really good augmented reality, a lower price point wine that's played up with that pretty well. I see QR codes really take off. I've actually got a nephew who's done a QR code in his parking spot at school. They get to design their spots. And so I think that younger generation is really into QR codes. I will tell you that going out to eat this summer while the pandemic died down a little bit with my father, he kept asking for a paper menu, didn't want to scan the QR code that was on the table to scroll through and look at the menu. So I think you've got a demographic issue with QR codes. I know some folks that will use it and some folks that won't. The other problem is refreshing that content on the QR code, right? So it's great if it's on the package. What happens if that package stays out there for 3 months at a retail environment where it doesn't move? Or somebody scans it from their house, they've given it to a friend, they've looked at the box, and that QR code's referencing to a static website that hasn't been updated. I think there's multiple components that are at play there. I personally love QR codes because it gives me a way to interact with the brand in a different manner. And also it pulls me more into their ecosystem.
Yeah, and Matt, some of the subscription boxes that we've received here have done, I think, a good job of using the QR code to provide that branding experience and engagement. So now keep in mind, I'm a millennial, so age may play a factor, but I'm also a big fan of QR codes. And I think subscription box companies can do a better job of using them to further engage the consumer and really capture the data and analytics piece that is often missing from print and packaging.
Absolutely.
So Matt, you mentioned sustainability. So Tim, I want to throw this over to you now and talk a little bit about sustainability. I know it's a big concern for subscription box brands. If they're shipping things weekly or monthly, that's creating a lot of packaging and in turn a lot of waste. So what can subscription box brands do to make their packaging more sustainable that won't significantly increase the cost. And that's the key factor. As Brian mentioned, a lot of subscription box brands are working on really, really small budgets. How can you manage that small budget and have some sustainable packaging solutions?
Well, that's a great question. And having spent all my career in the flexible packaging side, what I can tell you with the subscription boxes that arrive or cartons that arrive, I think it starts really with right sizing the shipping box. I think that's the first thing out of the gate. I think all too often we've all had experiences, and my two experts that I talked to as well, where the box comes with the product inside and you have to dig for 2 minutes to find your product inside of this very large box and all the dunnage that's inside protecting it. So it's not an easy thing to do because, again, these companies, their objective is to ship the product ASAP when they get the order. And now if I've got to go around and find the right box for each of the many different things I potentially have to ship, it puts more pressure on them. But again, that is one way to reduce their footprint in terms of packaging materials. Again, referring to the two experts I talked to earlier, one of them actually told me she had a subscription to a comic book, and the solution with that shipping box is they repurposed the box. By reversing that shipping carton, you were able to fold it and make it into a little shelf that she could put her comic books on, which I thought was an interesting way to basically repurpose what was used to ship the product to you in the first place. But again, I think whether it's corrugate or cartons, the pulp content of those items is recyclable. And if the infrastructure is there locally, and it's got to be at the local level, to collect and recycle those things. I know every carton we use, every corrugate box we bring into our facility here, we have 2 Gaylords, and it all goes in a carton, and we recycle all those. So again, I think it starts with right sizing the carton to begin with, or the box to begin with, and then 2 is the consumer, once they get it, there are opportunities in corrugate and cartons to recycle that material.
Thank you for that, Tim. So James, one of the other challenges, aside from the sustainability piece, is the freight expense. And subscription box companies spend a lot of money on transport because they're regularly shipping products. So what can subscription box brands do from a packaging perspective to minimize their freight costs?
Well, I think where a lot of people stub their toe in this, you understand, subscription box companies, typically they're startups or they're offshoots of a bigger company with a small, so their deal is to gain market share, and you gain market share by having a great looking product, having a great unboxing experience, having a great brand online, having a great story to tell. Nowhere in that do you hear dim weights. Nowhere in there do you hear how much pulp and paper is in the packaging. You don't hear any of that. That usually doesn't come around to the second round of funding. Then when somebody comes in and looks at it and says, "This is all great, we need to redo this." At that point, you've got a box, you've got molds, you've got all this stuff that you put into, and Brian will tell you, any manufacturer will tell you, tooling's a huge part of it. You've sunk all that cost into it. Now you're coming back and you want to redesign it. Our suggestion is always get all the stakeholders at the beginning. So if it's going to be, have the box manufacturer, have whoever's going to do your flexibles, have a carton manufacturer, have marketing in there, have somebody from the floor that's actually responsible for times and pack outs, and have all those people, and that should be your design team. Most times what a lot of companies do is they outsource design to whoever's going to make it for them. Now, as a former box manufacturer, I can tell you this: my goal was always to sell you as much paper as I could. I can tell you a bunch of different things, but my goal was easily to get as much into that that I think I can get away with. And also, as we talk about several times, the people selling packaging know more about it than the people buying it most times. So I can tell you exactly what I need. You're going to tell me everything. You're going to tell me what you want in it. You're going to tell me, I want this to look great. And I'm going to be like, great, I'll do this, and I'll do this for you. And here it goes. And everybody initially, because again, the initial goal is not to save money on packaging initially. The initial goal is to get this product out there, to achieve critical mass, to be online and have a great story. That's your initial goal. Where you can mitigate the problems you're going to get later is to have all those people in at the beginning. So yes, we do want a great unboxing. We want the glossiest paper we can get. We want all of that. But somebody has to be in the room and say, hey, but this stuff costs, right? If we do this is going to cost us extra on FedEx or wherever we choose to ship it. We have to cube out a truck. We have to do all of those. People need to be there at the beginning. And that's where I found it to be successful, if it goes down like that.
Yeah, sometimes if you're at the end of the road, there's not enough time to go back and pivot quickly, and you're going to be spending a lot more money. So agree, getting the right people at the beginning with like most things in life and business typically works out for the best. So Tim, one of the other things that comes up a lot with subscription brands is the challenges with managing how much packaging to produce. Because subscription box companies have people coming and going all the time. You could have 1,000 people sign up in April. You could have 700 people drop off in May. So there's a lot of flex and quantity. What can brands do to not overspend so they don't buy too much packaging, but also they want to make sure that they have enough to not run out? And so I'll let you answer that first and then see if Brian or Matt have any other thoughts. And then are there any print on demand or digital options that you recommend that work well for subscription box brands?
Yes, the digital printing process is really, whether it's in flexible packaging and digital printed cartons, really allows for the economics of shorter print runs. The print on demand or personalized printing of specific packages or shipping cartons is really suited to that digital printing process. By doing the digital short run economic runs, you avoid having to print up tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of cartons or packages, which if a brand doesn't sell or it totally flops, you end up having a fire sale later, or you just do a write-off and throw a lot of material away. Again, the digital printing process that has really come into its own here in the last 5 or 6 years, it really allows for these short runs economically. And especially, as Brian mentioned before, a lot of these are new brands and they're really just coming to market. So I don't need 10,000 packages or cartons to start. I want a few. I'm going to test the market and I'm going to find the 1 or 2 that really make a difference. And then I'll scale up. But I think that's what the digital printing process brings to the industry and allows for, as I said, economic short runs.
All right, Matt, we've got a question from the audience from Ryan Fox that I'm going to throw over to you. How often does a subscription box utilize digital printing and digital finishing to reduce tooling expenses? And what is the tipping point for digital versus manufacturing methods?
Okay. So I don't know that I have the hard and fast answer on what the utilization of digital printing for subscription boxes is. I would tell you it could be a whole lot higher than it actually is today, based on what's going on in the marketplace and the availability of the technology, right? Not only of the ability to do it, but the amount of folks that have digital printers. There is a much higher likelihood that you could get your product printed, shorter lead times, less inventory, and have that custom look to it. Now, as far as tooling expenses go, on traditional flexographic printing, you're not talking not much from a tooling expense. What you're really talking about is a longer lead time to be able to get through those assets, right? Because if you have Amazon coming through the building and you're a subscription box, you're getting pushed to the side. I hate to tell you. Or if you're in there with P&G and Amazon and a Revlon, you're going to get pushed to the side. So really the niche is for subscription box folks to find those smaller manufacturers that are good with custom jobs, that are good with small run production, so that you can get into a flow with them. They're more than happy to break in from time to time to make a special run for you. You can't make it an all the time thing. But as far as digital really is the future here, as far as I'm concerned, for subscription boxes. And even beyond that, with the new trialing of product offerings from established brands, right? So if P&G is going to launch a new Tide, or when they launched the green ketchup with Heinz, right? That would have been a great time to do a subscription model and use digital print on all that stuff versus running up all those labels. The second part of the question you were asking there around the differences, to the average consumer, you are not going to notice a difference in the print quality between digital and high-end flexographic. In fact, you probably can't even tell the difference if we put the boxes in front of you today. As far as the tipping point, if you're trying to run 5,000 boxes or less, I would say 100% digital. If you're over 5,000 boxes, I think there's a debate based on what your supply chain looks like, and if you have the flexibility to wait, or if you need something right now.
All right, thank you for that, Matt. Thanks, Tim. So, Brian, another challenge, there's lots of challenges here in the world of subscription boxes, is the fulfillment piece. So I'd like to have you share, how can selecting the right packaging partner make things easier for a subscription box brand, and what types of fulfillment programs have you seen work best with all the different changing components, changing items, and then as we've been talking about, the quantities seem to change pretty frequently from month to month in some cases.
Right. Yeah. So fulfillment's also definitely a challenge. And then, I mean, James was touching on freight costs. So freight costs are rising. So this is something that subscription brands continuously need to be reevaluating and adjusting their cost structure to reflect. But, I mentioned earlier that, subscription brands need to be sure that their deliveries are reliable, consistent, and on schedule. Subscription box customers expect their box to ship within a time frame and deliver within a time frame. So when you start losing consistency, you start losing your customer base. And then the most important thing from a packaging supplier, I would say, would be reliability. Both reliability in terms of on-time deliveries, but also quality. A packaging supplier should make things easier by instilling confidence in their ability to provide high-quality product on time. It's disastrous for a brand to have fulfillment halted due to missed deliveries or defective product. That is a complete no-go for a subscription box brand. So having a packaging vendor that you trust, and also a fulfillment partner that you trust if you're doing it out of house, is key. Another thing a packaging vendor can be leaned on is for making recommendations in terms of, fulfillment companies to use. If you're having issues with your fulfillment, I'm sure people like me and James have, plenty of experiences shipping into 3PLs with different customers that are all using the same one that we know do a great job. So if you're having issues with fulfillment, talk to your packaging person. My guess is they'll have some recommendations of people who do a great job. And then you kind of asked a little bit about what types of fulfillment programs have I seen be successful. I'm going to break it down simply into just, in-house fulfillment and outsourcing fulfillment. So I've seen it be successful with both in-house and both outsource for different scales across the whole spectrum. So there is no set answer as to what's right here. But typically, advantages of keeping it in-house would be cost savings, less touches, quality control. You get to oversee your whole operation, pack the boxes yourself, and then having a true sense of scale. Okay, I'm packing out 40 boxes a week. Well, 3 months from now, you're packing out 200 boxes a week. You're seeing the scale in front of your eyes. That can be really helpful to a company who's just starting off. Outsourcing fulfillment is a little more straightforward because it centers around two things: trust and cost. Utilizing the 3PL should come with strong quality, reliability, and great analytics because this is what they do day in and day out. However, the primary obstacle is often the cost associated with outsourcing fulfillment. That ease also comes with the cost. It's important to have trust with your fulfillment partner and fully understand the fees you'll be subject to. I can say that I've had partners come in after they've started working with a new fulfillment center and say, hey, I have these hidden fees where I'm getting hit for extra charges because of X, Y, and Z. And then we need to kind of tailor their ordering. So like James said, getting everybody involved from the start is so important so you don't have those mix-ups down the line. And I would say a big positive of outsourcing your fulfillment would be freeing up your time. Your time's valuable, and doing fulfillment correctly isn't necessarily directly growing your business and customer base. So there is no set threshold to say if you have X amount of subscribers, you should be doing in-house. You should be utilizing the 3PL. That just doesn't exist. It's more important to take your business and the people's skill sets into consideration. If you're a team of marketing and creative whizzes, it may make more sense to outsource to a 3PL. If you have a former warehouse manager or operations guru on staff, it might make more sense to keep the fulfillment in-house. So it's really a collective look at the whole thing. There's a lots of ways to do it, and I've seen huge companies be successful doing fulfillment themselves, and I've seen huge companies have success outsourcing fulfillment. So there's a lot of different factors to consider.
All right, thanks, Brian. So Matt, we have some people that are tuned in today that are packaging manufacturers. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for packaging manufacturers that want to pick up more subscription box clients? So they're not doing a lot in the subscription box space today, and they want to tackle that.
Sure. Like many retail or high touch large brands, manufacturers are trying to get more e-com boxes and subscription boxes specifically. They really got to focus on the fact that it's a much higher touch point sale, and they've got to be treated as coming in as the teacher. They can't come in as the expert and scare folks away. They've got to come in and educate the buyer or the CEO or the marketing person around what is possible with what they're working on, right? So if you think of a traditional buyer-seller relationship with a corrugate manufacturer, you're dealing with a sales rep, primarily arm's length away from the manufacturing facility. And typically it's somebody in a procurement organization that's been there a while, or they have some sense of how to source a product. Most of these boxes that we're talking about for subscription are being sourced by somebody who's never sourced product before, or that 2 weeks ago they were running finance and now they're doing the sourcing. They need to know that they're talking to an expert that's giving them a holistic view and is not just trying to sell them their single product, right? So if you're a corrugated manufacturer and you can't manufacture everything for that brand, you need to be upfront and honest, right? It's about being authentic. It's not trying to be altruistic here. It's about communicating the value that you can bring to the brand and helping them connect with the other pieces that they need to. Now, obviously, we would love to do everything recyclable. 100% fiber going through there would be great. And a corrugate manufacturer is probably the lowest cost solution for these folks, outside of potentially going into some sort of custom-made fiber mailer. But being real with these folks and not taking them down a rabbit hole. There have been times that I've seen subscription boxes that have started small that have been built into these beautiful boxes, but they're paying for something that they really can't afford. And they could much more use that money to go after a lot of their marketing initiatives, to acquire new customers. And maybe a year from now, come back and get that next package that really would make their box pop that much more into the future, right? So it's really around focusing on being that value added partner, not trying to get it the short sale, but focusing on how do you get me there in the future, and what can you do for me now, and what can't you do for me with that open and honest question, feedback, and allowing them to try and helping them fail fast so that those brands are successful, right? Many times we see manufacturers that pigeonhole somebody into a pre-existing die cut with easy flexo plates because that's what they have in the shape, but help them fail forward, help them go through that iterative process of learning how to prototype something and testing that prototype out with them in the marketplace.
So James, Matt brought up something that I think is really important around how it can be really hard for subscription box brands to source packaging because they're very, very small teams, startups that you've got someone wearing 5 or 6 hats. What advice do you have for subscription box brands that don't even know where to start in the sourcing process? to go out and find that packaging partner or to find that packaging supplier, whether that's either here in the US or globally? Just what are some basic tips that you can recommend to people to get started?
Well, the first thing is find somebody like me or Antares, JKT, find somebody like us that this is what we do, is we would actually sit down and talk to you about what are your goals. And the goal is initially always to get market share. The goal is initially to bring this brand out. The goal shouldn't be initially to have the Taj Mahal of boxes, the Taj Mahal of packaging initially, unless it's in your budget. And if it's in your budget, then what we tell you is understand this is a burn rate at this point. You're not going to look at, you're going to look at, if you're just trying to get out there, you have to look at this as a burn rate, not as something that's going to break even or something like that. Until you are going to lose money on this, on the packaging while you're getting it out there. If that is your goal and you still want the biggest packaging, usually there's always an answer in the middle. There usually is. The client can't necessarily see it. The manufacturer can't necessarily see it. Not that it can't happen one way or the other, but you need somebody to be in the middle to tell you, okay, we can do this, but we can't do that. Let's look at design. Maybe we have this paper, but if we went with this paper or this finish, we can save money, and then have these ideas bounce back and forth. The problem is usually what happens is a marketing department, an entrepreneur who's a believer and who believes in their product and their mission has this vision, and this vision doesn't necessarily translate in the real world enough for the CFO to like it, if you will. So that's it. You got to get all those people together to make sure they agree. And so that is where you would need somebody to come in and who can look at all of it, look at the entire enterprise and say, okay, here's a good step coming out forward. And then if we hit our goals in 3 to 6 months, then we can look at this type of packaging. Then we can look at that type of packaging. If you don't want to do that, then you need to temper expectations. And your expectations need to be this packaging is going to be super duper expensive, or this packaging is going to look super duper basic until we get to our certain point, and then we have to look at it again. So one or the other, either have realistic expectations about what you're going to do and look at it as a burn rate, or bring somebody in from the beginning who can gather all these people together and come up with the solution, the initial solution and the solution after it. Because the thing I often tell clients is, it's not going to look like this. It's not going to look like this in a year. In a year, we're going to have a whole new set of issues. And in a year, we probably need to come back to the table and look at it. So if you're willing to have that, but that's kind of a hard conversation for somebody who's just raised money or who has this mission that they believe, and this product and this thing is going to change the world. Matt's laughing because he knows he's probably had some of the same conversations I've had. And so you have to really temper their expectations on what it's going to be like. And I think if you do that, a lot of things that would be called failures wouldn't be called failures afterwards, if that makes sense. Because a failure or an excess is basically it's determined on whatever your expectations were going into it.
All right, thank you, James. Tim, you do a lot in the flexible packaging space. That's where you've spent most of your career. What do you think are the biggest growth opportunities in flexible packaging for subscription brands?
I would say from a subscription box standpoint, to be able to do the digital footprint, customize or personalized packaging. It's being done today by several companies in the marketplace. And I will tell you, we're working with an e-commerce company today that is going to bring customized, digitally printed pouches of specific film sizes and closures delivered to the end use consumer. Individuals be able to design their package online and get a 3D rendering of it online to take a look at what it looks like before they place the order. And our model right now is to get down at this point to quantities of 50 individualized, customized pouches. Now, what could you do with these individualized, customized pouches? Well, I've got my parents' 50th wedding anniversary is coming up. I want to have a little pack on everybody's table for all the guests. And on the front is a picture of Grandma and Grandpa as they look today. And on the back is a picture of them when they were married 50 years ago. And inside are a few trinkets and a couple of pieces of Godiva chocolates, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with that, from individually personalizing pouches. And when you get down to quantities of 50, that's pretty small in this space, in this arena. So again, we're looking forward to this launch later this year. And I think that's just a great opportunity in the subscription box or customized packaging arena. So.
Yeah, and sticking on that theme, Brian, what have you seen in regards to personalization or customization from subscription box brands that you think really stands out? I know in direct mail, personalized direct mail significantly outperforms general direct mail. And I think personalization is also really important in the subscription box space.
Absolutely. So I've seen two things that I want to bring up. On a small scale, kind of like what Tim just mentioned on the maybe 50 piece or less, I've seen people do live runs individualizing each package to the person they're sending it to. So it has their name on it and a message individualized for them. And with digital print, you can often run this all in line, one run. That's the great flexibility that digital offers. That's what it's all about. On a larger scale, I've seen maybe just dropping some handwritten notes in for personalization that has been huge for companies. People love any type, maybe not even handwritten, maybe it's typed, but some sort of personalized note. Or what some brands like to do is just bonus gifts, because you saw, hey, somebody loves something from a previous box, drop it in their next box even though they didn't order it. That little bit of personalized touch is what keeps people coming back, and that's what gets people recommending your box to friends, and that's what really adds that different layer of personalization that keeps people coming back, and they'll keep growing your brand for you.
And I think, Brian, for me personally, humor goes a long way. So if people can include something funny in a box, I'm much more likely to engage and continue. So I think it's important to not forget that very simple but subtle piece that can go a long way. Tim, we had a question come in from the audience from Michelle that I'd like to have you address. What are the flexible pouches made of? Is there a range, and are they compostable?
The initial launch will include an all polyethylene type pouch, which is recyclable with your supermarket chain grocery bags. Phase 2, and we're working on that now also, but will involve bio-based compostable films. These are films that have basically been certified as being industrial compostable here in the United States, and in Europe, both industrial and household compostable in Europe. So a lot of work is being done in that area, but again, what you will see several months after the launch is phase 2, where there will be biocompostable films will be offered as part of the portfolio.
And then Tim, talk to her about the zipper piece. One of the challenges with recycling flexible packaging is the zipper. So what's going on with that?
Yes, in the there are bio-based zippers available today. The question is, do they compost under the strict guidelines of compostability, because they're thicker than your normal bio-based films? So there are bio-based zippers today. In our last session, we talked about the bio-based compostable child-resistant zippers. That continues to be a challenge, with a lot of work and development being done. But again, as I said, this is just a lot of development there. But there are bio-based zippers, your normal press-to-close zipper you see on the top of your cheese pouches that you get in the supermarket. Those are available today, and we've made a number of products with those today.
Thank you, Tim. So we've got 5 minutes left. So I want to throw each of you a question about an innovation that you're most excited about that you've seen, or that's something that's in the works that you think could be useful to subscription box brands? So James, I'll start with you. Oh, we might have lost James here. So Brian, we'll go to you in regards to a cool or unique packaging innovation that you think will be useful for subscription box brands.
Yeah, so something from, I'll try to keep it quick. I know we're limited on time here. Something from a manufacturing process that we like to do. So when you print a box on two sides, that often will require two machine passes. So put the box through, print the inside, bring it back around, flip it, print the outside, die cut it out the door. Keeping that process down to one pass is very important to minimizing costs. So something that I've done a lot of is utilizing an inside top sheet litho label, and then direct printing, flexo printing the outside. For a manufacturing process, that allows us to one pass it through our plant, give you a beautiful two-sided print box, and capture some efficiencies. An innovation that I'm seeing in the market right now, which is something that I have not really heard of, is being able to print craft and white paper in line. So when we receive the sheets in-house, we can one pass the product. And this is not utilizing a label. This is still using craft and modeled white paper. So that's a new innovation in the marketplace that I've just started to maybe play around with in the past 2 months. So it's something to keep an eye out for, and definitely engage your manufacturer and ask questions about how you can keep your box down to one pass.
All right, Matt, innovation that you're most excited about that you think will be relevant to subscription box brands.
So one of the things I'm most excited about in my past company, we actually partnered with HP on this, is the launch of digital print for molded fiber inserts. So basically think egg cartons. So they've basically cut the tooling lead time, the prototyping time, as well as the manufacturing time down for somebody to launch in a more sustainable fashion versus having to use air pillows or a retention pack to hold something in place in a box. They've also released the ability to directly embed into those on both the inside and the outside of the mold, logos, brands, words. This is fantastic technology that could really allow folks to go more sustainable with their packaging and communicate what they want to in there. So this is new. The tooling is also a resin-based tooling, so it's much lighter, helping with the manufacturing process. There's a lot less change over time. They can get it on machine quicker. And it's also been able to hold up to the cycles that go through. There's less repair on it than you would have with the traditional mesh screen that comes there for your molded fiber trays and inserts.
Really interesting, Matt. I'm definitely going to make a note to follow that and see how it progresses this year. Tim, innovation that you're excited about.
All right, I'm going to. I think Matt just mentioned HP. I guess I'm going to actually do a show and tell, if that's okay. There's two things that you can do in the digital printing process on an HP press. It's in the software, and you can make the pouch. Every pouch you make will be slightly different. And I don't know if you can see this, but the top of that pouch is different than the top of that pouch is different than the next one, et cetera, et cetera. So in the software with the file, every pouch is individualized, customized, is somewhat different. And that's pretty neat and slick, and you can't do that with a traditional printing press. So,
James, packaging innovation you're most excited about that you think will be relevant to subscription brands.
Well, we've been working with a producer of coatings, and their goal is to eliminate all poly-based packaging, period. No plastic ever. So these coatings would go into folding cartons, corrugated, molded pulp. And what they would do is they are totally compostable and totally recyclable. So you can, and they're actually residentially recyclable. So to, I think, Tim's point, you can actually throw it away in the blue bin outside. You don't have to take it down to the grocery store to throw it away. And so that's exciting because for our food grade customers, for people like the HelloFreshes, the Blue Aprons of the world, anything that can get, and their goal is to get plastic out of packaging. forever. And if you talk to one of the owners, they will tell you about, how bad plastic is and how we need to eliminate it. And then being in fiber, I'm all for it. So that's something we're excited. We're trying to help them present it to clients wherever we feel the application is going. But I think this can really change things if we can get the story out. So if anybody's interested in that, I can definitely, and what they're looking for now, they're looking to partner with a lot of packaging companies, box makers, that kind of thing. The key thing is to sell your clients on it. And it works. It works. We can totally eliminate the need for plastic trays, use molded pulp trays, or just whatever, composite fiber trays. And coat them, and your liquids will stay in there and not seep through. When you're done, you can totally put it in recycling and walk away with a clear conscience, which I think is a great story that just needs to get out more.
Awesome. So we are at time. I want to thank Brian, Matt, Tim, and James for sharing your insights today about subscription box packaging. Join us again September 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern to discuss food packaging. And if you are on LinkedIn and want to get more updates about cool and unique things happening in the packaging space, you can follow my hashtag, which is Scudder Says, and I post almost daily news about packaging. So with that, I'll wish everyone a wonderful afternoon or evening.